This should be a fairly short video, and I'm actually kind of hoping it is because I'm filming this just before I start work. Hi everyone, my name is Chloe, welcome back to my channel, thank you for being here today. Today's video is going to be my September reading wrap up. Now I'm just going to say it up front, September was a bad month for me, it was a slumpy month. I think I said this, I don't know if August was a bad month as well, but basically my reading has not been the best recently. I have been enjoying what I've been reading, everything on here is a 4 or 5 stars. So the ratings are fine, but it's just a lot of effort for me to actually pick up a book at the minute. I'm hoping that changes soon. I'm very excited about my October TBR, but September just wasn't the best. I'll tell you the stats and then you can see. So just for context, usually I read 10 plus books a month. This month I read 6, which is still a decent amount to read, but just is not on par with what I would usually expect. It was the month that I read the lowest this year in terms of both books and pages. So yeah, definitely the slumpiest month I've had so far this year. So those 6 books totaled 3,007 pages, and that was an average of 100.23 pages per day, which is one thing I am happy about because I've said many times before, my aim is to read at least 100 pages per day on average. There are some days I don't read all and some days I read a lot more, and I'm happy that that is just over that 100 because it means so far this year I've not had a month where I've gone under that. For the year today I'm now sitting at 151 pages per day, which yeah, definitely still in the average. I'm happy about that. One thing that did go up quite high this month was the average pages per book. So this is a newer thing I've been tracking, and so far this year it's always been sitting under 500 apart from one month, which was February. This month it's 501.17 per book. So although I've read less, there are definitely some chunkier books in there. And I know why that is because I will get to it in a minute. There's one particular book that has bumped that up. But to be honest, even some of the romances I've been reading this month have been more pages than you would expect for a romance. One of them was 400 pages. And I'm like, that just seems like a lot. I feel like it's more of the standard these days. But I remember times gone by where you would get a romance that was 200 and something. And now it's 400. But I mean, I was enjoying the romance, so it's absolutely fine, but still, just more pages than you might expect for that type of book. In terms of the format, it's a pretty even mix this month, so I had 2 that I listened to that were completely audiobook, 2 that were a mixture of audio and physical, and then 2 that were completely physical. And then again, for age ranges, it's a very even split. We have free YA and free adult, which more recently it's been skewing one way or the other, so nice that it's balanced out, I suppose. And then for star ratings, yet another balancing act, we've got free 4 stars and free 5 stars. So, not the worst statistics in the world, but just everything's, in general, the amount of everything is a little bit lower, which, yeah, it's fine, it's fine. I will get out of this slump, I'm sure of it. So, let's actually talk through what I did read and give you some thoughts about it. I will say that part of the slumpiness as well is just I feel like my brain's just a little bit tired. I mean, it is also 7 AM, so that could be why my brain's a little bit tired, but I may not have the most coherent thoughts on these because some of them I read right at the beginning of the month and I honestly can't remember exactly what my thoughts are. I need to get better at writing notes on these things, but that's a whole other story. Let's just talk about the book. I will try and give you some halfway decent reviews. I'll try. So the first book that I read this month was actually one that I was reading at the end of August, but then I read the majority of it in September, so I've decided to talk about it now rather than try and squeeze it into last month's wrap up, and that was We Hunt the Flame by Hester Feisal. So this one I read because Meg had put it on my TBR game as an option for me to read, and it came up last month. I enjoyed this, but it did take me a while to get into it. I ended up giving it 4 stars. The basic sort of premise in this is that you've got 2 main characters, one called Zafira, who is a hunter, and then you've got Nasir, who's a prince of death. He's an assassin, and they're both sent on similar tasks, which are about kind of bringing magic back to a land, and it's just about what happens on that quest and when they sort of meet up with each other and how they interact with each other. And I know that's a really rubbish synopsis, but I've just kind of condensed what's on the back of the book. So I'm like, how much can I actually say about this? I can't even remember what you're supposed to know and what you're not supposed to know. And I suppose that's part of the problem. I enjoyed the stuff between the characters. and the writing was really beautiful, but I just found the story took me a little bit of time to get into. It was a little bit confusing at first, trying to kind of figure out what was going on. And now I'm and even now, like, I read it like a month ago, and I'm like, okay, but what actually happened in this book? I do remember bits of it, but the bits I remember are bits like from later on that I can't tell you about. I am going to read the sequel because I have been told that the sequel is apparently better than the first book anyway. And because it got progressively better as it went along, that sounds like it makes sense to me. So I will be finishing it off, and it might be one of those where if I reread it because I know the story going into it, I give it a higher rating. But for now it's a 4-star, which, you know, is a good rating, so I'm happy about that. I am glad I read it. I've had it on my shelves for a while. I believe this one was gifted to me by Effie. Yes, it was. So thank you, Effie, for that. I think it was sometime last year. And thank you, Meg, for making me read this one. Next up, we have another 4-star, and that one was Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. This one I can give you thoughts on because I can remember why this one wasn't a 5-star. So this is Ali Hazelwood's new book. I'm guessing you all know Ali Hazelwood is the author of The Love Hypothesis. I have a friend who is very much obsessed with Ali Hazelwood books. We all know I'm talking about Becca Fowle. And I had some issues with this, but also I still gave it a 4 stars because as much as I was ranting about it when I was reading it, I still had a good time. It's very hard to explain. I was talking to Meg about this because she had a similar opinion. And basically, let me tell you the premise. So the main character, called Bee, has a new job where she's going to be working on a project at NASA, and she's going to be sort of one of the leaders of that team. There is another leader of the team, and it's a guy called Levi, and he was her sort of rival when they were at like university together. And then obviously when they end up working together, it's going to turn into a romance. That's the sort of book this is. Now, from the very beginning, it's set up that like these two hated each other when they were at school together before. But also from the very beginning, it's very, very clear that this is just a misunderstanding. Like, it's told from Bee's point of view. So you're getting her ranting about how horrible he was and all this. And I'm looking at it thinking, there's something else here. And it's like, and like I said, it's painfully obvious that she's just very much misreading the situation. He also basically handles his own feelings very badly, and it makes perfect sense why she would misread the situation, because he doesn't really know what to do when he likes someone, is what it seems like in this. But yeah, the miscommunication just took like a long time to get resolved. Even when the romance started happening, she like instantly assumed something about their relationship then, and I'm like, again, can't you just have a conversation with each other? It would make life so much easier. And I know miscommunication is a big trope in romance, but just in this, with the amount of it, it did great on me a little bit. Also, there was a trope that is actually in a later book as well, which I suppose could be a spoiler, but also like it isn't, because again, it is painfully obvious from the first time it's on page that there's going to be this reveal about something. But because it's told from Bee's point of view, it is treated like a reveal. It's treated like a when it all comes to light, it's treated like you should be shocked by this. But because from the very first time it appears, you're like, oh, well, that's so and so, well, that's this. It just became irritating, because I was like, when is she going to figure out what is clearly going on in this situation? Whereas in the other book that it happened in, which I did enjoy more, and I will talk about that later on, because it had a dual perspective. So you were well aware of what was happening because you saw from both people's point of view, and it was more just a reveal of when they were going to figure it out, as opposed to like you're supposed to be shocked by it as well. So that worked a lot better for me in general, because I was less annoyed at that, because I was already in on it, if that makes sense. If you've read this book, you may understand what I'm talking about. If you haven't, I'm hoping that I've been vague enough that it's not spoiled it for you. But for all that like sort of negativity I just said then, like I said, I still gave it a 4 stars. Every time I was ranting about it, I'm like, oh no, I'm still really enjoying it. It's a fun time. So yeah, it's still a 4-star read. Just one that like I got actively annoyed at while reading. Does that make any sense? And then we're going to get to my favourite book of the month. So of course this is a 5-star. It is Assassin's Fate by Robin Hobb. This is the last book in the Realm of the Elderlings. This is book 16. I've read 16 of these books now. I don't understand how. Like, I started reading them I think last August. So it's only taken me like a year to do this. And my mission was to finish reading these by the time the Catch Up Book Club finished reading them as well, because I wanted to watch the last live show. I managed to do that. I finished it like 2 days before the live show, and I'm very happy about that. This, I can't explain this now, kind of like, it is literally the book that ties everything together that's come on that's happened in the Realm of the Eldlings before. So there'd be so many spoilers if I tried to give you a synopsis. But essentially, the main thread of the Realm of the Eldlings follows this character called Fitz, who is the bastard son of the Crown Prince. He's originally raised by his mother, but then his maternal grandfather decides that basically it's his dad's turn to have a go at raising him, so he leaves him on the doorstep of the keep, and then his dad, the prince, quickly abdicates and disappears, so he is left to be raised by the stable master until he gets old enough that the king starts to take an interest, because he is in a very good position where he's close enough to the like royals and the elite people in society that it can be beneficial, but also far enough away that he can do slightly more nefarious things, hence the assassin part. That is not a description of this book whatsoever. Like, so much has happened since that point. There's also like this whole magic system, which there's 2 different magics. One that means that you interact with people's minds, and one that means you interact with animals' minds. That is a big thing of this. I'm not even going to tell, it's called the Realm of the Eldlings, but I'm not even going to tell you what an Eldling is, because that doesn't get revealed till quite a while into this series. There is so much to this, and this did so well at tying this all together. So we've had... This is a 5th series. It's sort of 5 smaller series as part of one big world. This is the 5th series. We've had 3 like sets of characters, because we've had 3 Fitz trilogies, and then we've had the Live Ship Traders and the Rainbow Chronicles. So there was quite a lot to tie together in this. And I will say that, like, if anything is wrong with this book, it is that it would have been nice to have like another series almost running alongside this of the Live Ship Traders in particular, because there's quite a lot of characters there, and they are a lot of people's favourites as well. So it just would have been nice to see a little bit more of them, because it's from Fitz's point of view, so you're always going to see more of Fitz. Luckily, Fitz is my favourite, so I was fine with it, but it probably would have been a nice addition. This broke me a lot. I don't cry at books a lot, and this one got me. And the thing is that I knew it was going to be painful. Like I was expecting a lot of the pain that happened in here, and then what happened is basically you got, I think, like 150 pages from the end, and something happened, and it was like very sad, and I was like, but there's going to be more, because that, like, we can't end there. We've got 150 pages left. How would you carry on from here? So then there was like an extra part of it, and that last 150 pages was just like slow torture, but in the best possible way. It was very strange. It's very hard to explain without giving you spoilers, but it was just very, very beautifully done. And my favourite thing about this book series is the characters and the relationship between characters, particularly Fitz and the Fool. This is a Fitz and the Fool trilogy, so you can imagine that that was a big part of this. And yeah, I loved it. 5 stars. Nothing else to say. Then we have got another 4-star read, and that one was Legendborn by Tracy Dion. So this is another one where I just got a little bit confused, and that's why my rating's a little bit lower. So this is about a girl whose mum dies in an accident. She then goes off to this college program for sort of like bright students, and it's at the college that her mum used to go to. And when she gets there, on one of the first nights, she witnesses a sort of magical attack where she can see the magic that is happening when other people can't. And from there, she sort of discovers the magic that is happening at this university, and also a little bit more information about what actually happened when her mother died. Now, one of the issues that I had with this, and even saying that synopsis, it reminded me of it, is that from the very off, this reminded me a little bit of like City of Bones by Cassandra Clare, because that has like a similar setup at the beginning, especially with the whole like magic happening that no one else can see but she can. It was better written, in my opinion, than that. Do not come at me, Cassandra Clare fans. I know she's probably got better at writing since then, but we can all admit the Mortal Instruments is not the best, and that's the only ones I've read. But what I realised in noticing that similarity is that this was never going to be my perfect type of book, because I don't tend to do that well with a lot of urban fantasies. I'm saying this, and I know there are some urban fantasies I'm excited to read for the rest of the year, and I know that I've rated other ones highly before, but just in general, it's not like my go-to type of book, especially not in YA as well. And I think because I noticed the similarities to that straight away, it was like, oh, well, this may not be the type of book you like. And then the magic system just got a little bit confusing. There's a lot of names thrown about. It's all based on Arthurian legend, and there's just a lot of names of like who's descendant from who, and it just got a little bit like messy in my head trying to figure it all out. By the end of it, I was enjoying it, and I was sort of, I figured out who the main people are, and that's kind of all you really need to know too much at the minute. I will also say though, I found it a little bit predictable at times. Some of the twists that I think were supposed to be twists anyway towards the end, I was like, I know, I kind of guessed we were going in that direction, it's fine. So I think what it is with this is that I gave it a high rating because the writing was really good. The main character was very well developed. I'm not sure about some of the side characters. I didn't quite sort of get invested in her relationships with all of them yet. And the ones that I did weren't in it enough. It's a little bit strange. But in general, it's promising for the rest of the series. I will be picking up Bloodmarked when it comes out. But I do just have a couple of issues with it. Hence why it was a 4-star rather than a 5. But let's go on to another 5-star read, shall we? The next one is Scythe by Neil Shusterman. How did I take so long to read this book? This is my pretty special edition from Fairyloot that I am now happy to confirm I am very glad that I bought. I had the paperback of this. I've actually just unhauled it. Like as soon as I read it, I unhauled it because I'm like, no, it's fine. I will keep my hardbacks from Fairyloot. I really, really enjoyed this. So this has got a slightly dark concept. It is a world where death has been eradicated. No one dies from diseases, no one dies from accidents. You can be healed like very, very quickly. And in order to keep down the population, there are these people called Scythes who basically go around and glean people, which is killing them. And in order to become a Scythe, you have to go through training. And at the beginning of this book, 2 people are chosen to be Scythe's apprentice. And then I'm not going to tell you too much more from there because the synopsis does actually like tell you something about like the setup of that, because basically each Scythe is only supposed to have 1 apprentice. So there's a little bit of a change going on here, and obviously there's going to be some results of that, and the synopsis does actually tell you one of the things from that. And I wish I'd not read the synopsis before I read it, because I think that would have been a better reveal if I'd not read it. I mean, because a bit that's in the synopsis doesn't get revealed to like at least 100 pages in, if not longer. So would have been nice to not know that part. Just if you haven't read the synopsis and you want to read the book, don't read it. Just go off of like that vague bit that you already know, because I feel like we all have like a vague idea of what this is about. It also then is obviously going to go into the whole idea of why these particular people are in this position of power, how people choose it, whether or not it's a sort of, they're doing it in the humane way that they're supposed to be doing it. Those were always going to be points of discussion in a dystopian world like this. And it's, like I said, a dark premise, really, because it's about these people training to be killers. And I really, really enjoyed it. There was just something about the way it was written. It was very captivating. I listened to the audiobook and I flew through it. I listened to it in one day. So yeah, like I will carry on with this series. I do know that the second one is a lot of people's favourite and the third one is very hit and miss. I'm hoping I like it, but we'll see. And happy that I finally picked it up, annoyed with myself that I didn't do it many years ago. And then the last book that I read this month is another 5 stars. And objectively, it maybe shouldn't have been 5 stars, because when I put it through Cawpile, it was definitely coming out at a 4 originally, and then I may have tweaked some points just to get it up to a 5, because I rate on emotions rather than like objectivity sometimes. And this was one of those. I just had a really fun time reading it. It is, spoiler alert, by Olivia Dade. So this is an adult romance that is all set in the world of fandom. I love books that are set in the world of fandom. Like I really love like the Geekerella series by Ashley Poston, and this kind of reminds me of like a grown-up version of that. So basically it is about 2 characters. So you've got Marcus, who is on a TV show which is very obviously Game of Thrones. We're just going to say that now. And he also writes fan fiction about that show, but no one knows that. And he kind of uses that as his way to vent his frustration about how the showrunners are handling that show now that they no longer have the books to reference when they're writing the scripts. You see what I mean about it being Game of Thrones. And then you have April, who is also a fanfic writer. She's quite well known in that world, and she also does cosplay. And then one day she posts a picture of her cosplay online, and Marcus, as the actor Marcus, ends up asking her out on a date and quickly realises that he doesn't just want it to be a publicity stunt, and the relationship kind of develops from there. But obviously there are secrets to be revealed in the way of him also being a fanfic writer. and I really enjoyed this book. Like I say, it was just a good time. The only thing that did like pull me out of it a little bit was the Game of Thrones-ness of it, because every time they were ranting about the TV show, I'm like, I know exactly what you're talking about here. But then they made a reference to Game of Thrones later on, and I was like, why? Well, they shouldn't exist in the same world. Because why are we in a world where two sets of showrunners have messed up a series? No, thank you. But no, I really enjoyed it. I really liked the romance between Marcus and April. I found that I liked both of the main characters, which is always a good thing when you're reading a romance. Sometimes you have it where like you'll root for the one that you're following, but then the other one feels less developed. I think because we were following both perspectives, like you got a full insight into both of them, which was good. There was, like I said, a trope in here that was used earlier on. This is the one I was talking about with Love on the Brain. In here, it was handled very differently. Because you were following both of them, you were well aware of the situation from the very beginning, and it meant that I was just waiting for the other character to find out and the inevitable drama that would cause. And because of that, it was fine. It wasn't grating on me as much. So yeah, I very much enjoyed this one. I am actually reading the sequel to it now. The sequel is like a companion book, so it's Marcus's best friend in this one is the main character in the second one. I will say this entire series all has plus size representation as well. 5 stars. Nice read to finish the month. This was one of those where once I started reading I just couldn't put it down, which is hopefully a good sign for the sort of slump that I've been in throughout the month. Okay, so these are the books that I read during the month of September. A smaller stack, definitely. I can hold it up, which is a good thing. But I am hoping that I'll be able to read a little bit more in October. But if I can't, let's just hope that they are still highly rated books like these ones were. So, I think that is everything. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff down below. Let me know what your favourite book was that you read in the month of September. And I will see you guys next time with a new video. Bye.